Hello, my name is Taylor Marshall. I am doing this video presentation for Mrs. Vaughan's child growth class. Um, Over the 10 research articles that we have critiqued and summarized this year, I picked 5 out that I thought were pretty important and good enough to talk about, and their glows and their grows. And some of the ones that I picked were social withdrawal behavior at 1 year of age is associated with delays in development and reaching language milestones, and the Eden Mother-Child Cohort Study by Antoine Whitney and Anne Forehand. Another one was healthcare, family, and community factors associated with mental, behavioral, and developmental disorders in early childhood by Rebecca Bitsko and Joseph Holbrook and others. Another one that I thought was important was motor milestones and subsequent development, and stand bias versus seated classrooms in childhood obesity, a randomized experiment in Texas. And another one that I thought was very important was interpreting autism. I thought social withdrawal behavior at 1 year of age is associated with delays in reaching language milestones in the Eden Mother-Child Cohort Study by Antoine Whitney and Anne Forehand and others. I thought this was an important research article. Some glows that it has would be how all the information in it was just packed with information about social withdrawal and how early intervention is a key factor in children. It's okay when a child shows some social withdrawal as when they're young, but when it becomes excessive, it's important to understand that something needs to happen. Like, the child needs help, and this information gave guidance to that and really helped if a mother or a child saw their child struggling with social withdrawal, not wanting to attach to anybody and just being towards themselves. I think it's important that they read this article and be able to understand what they can do. A grow that I had for this article was just the data that was all up in the text. There was just percent signs, and it was very lengthy. It was hard to read. It was hard to understand. And when it came to actually getting a message across, you had to read it a few times before you actually understood what you were reading. And that's just something that I thought this article could grow on. The second article that I thought was important was healthcare and family and community factors associated with mental, behavioral, and developmental disorders in early childhood by Rebecca Bitsko and Joseph Holbrook and others. I thought this was important because it has a lot of good information about where children live and how where they live directly affects their lives. And children who live below middle class income tend to be more susceptible to have impaired physical and cognitive development, meaning that when they don't have as many of the resources as more privileged kids have, they tend to fall below that line and need help. And there is help. There are financial welfare programs and financial aid that teachers or caregivers could seek to help them in this struggle, and it's not the end of the line. And that's what this article highlights as well, is that that's not it. Like, you're not done at that point. Something that I thought this article could grow on was that there was just too much data, again, within the actual text, and it made the passages difficult to understand. Another thing that was really irritating about this article, it said the same thing over and over again. For it to be such a lengthy article, it made the same key points all throughout all of its content. So that's something that I thought this article could grow on as well. Another article that I thought was important were major milestones and subsequent development. And something that I thought was important about this was that it highlights at which age children develop major motor skills, and how those connections can ultimately become signs of future development. And it's good for a mother or teacher or anybody who is attending this child, who is with this child and notices their behavior from a day-to-day basis. It's important to understand when their major motor skills are coming in. And this article highlights how if it comes in a little bit further than other children, how that could ultimately affect their future and the skills that they develop in the future. Something that I thought this article could grow on was it was based on a lot of participants, and the data, it even states it in the article that almost 2,000 of those participants dropped out of the study. And I think if we had more participants that stayed with the study from the beginning of the article to the end, we would have a lot more information about the development in these children. And we would know more about where at what age these children develop these different kinds of skills. And it's important to have all of that information for a study like this. And it was accurate information. They made the study become aligned with their current data and the people that still were participating. But if we just had that extra 2,000 people that had dropped out since the beginning of the study, we would have more detailed information on exactly what age these children develop these major motor skills, and how developing these major motor skills later does affect these children. The third article that I thought was very important, and this is my favorite article, is the Stand Bias versus Seated Classrooms in Childhood Obesity, a randomized experiment in Texas. I thought this article was important because I like the idea of what the article was trying to express. Too often and not do you see children just struggling, sitting in a classroom. Even in all my observations, when I went to these classrooms and saw these children doing just their day-to-day work, a lot of them just fidgeted and just wanted to move and had a lot of energy to express. And throughout the day, yes, the teachers do take them on like little breaks, brain breaks, and would take them out to recess, a little bit extra time than older students because of that factor. But I think just if there's a child who wants to stand in a classroom, then they should be able to do that. And this article highlights how it also helps the ultimate BMI score as the child grows older through grade school from kindergarten to 4th grade. And it's just very important for children to have that option, I think, to be able to stand if it helps them in the long run. Something that I thought that this article could grow on was the overall article was actually about obesity. And while I like the idea of stand versus seated classrooms, obesity is something that we've just heard about for a long time in America, and it is a very important concept. But I think it's important for people to also know, reading this article, that it's not just about obesity. It's about what makes your child more comfortable from a parent to child point of view, a teacher to child point of view, in their environment, and what will ultimately lead them to be more successful. Another article that I thought was very important was this last article. It was interpreting autism. This article was important because we see people everywhere who suffer from autism. It is not a rare illness. We hear about it on the news, we hear about it on TV, you just hear about it everywhere. And even going to these classrooms, when I was observing, did I see multiple children who did suffer from autism. And in a regular classroom, they did have teachers' aides and people there to directly help them. But this article highlights different ways that just a regular person can sit down with a person who does suffer from autism and be able to converse with them and make them feel comfortable while doing so that they're not just putting the child down from just not understanding their point of view. It's important. Autism is just a very important illness, and something that shouldn't really affect the way that we see a child when we have absolute control and over how these different situation goes. And this article, it went over autism and how to speak to a child with autism, and it's just important to be able to do that. One example that I really liked from this article was about a boy who was talking in class, and the teacher was talking too fast for him, and at one point he broke out into song, in his favorite song from The Lion King, The Circle of Life. And he was automatically kind of put down for that because it was something odd, something that not everybody in the classroom really expected from him. And it's important as an adult to understand that you can't just put a child down like that. When you see somebody doing something, you need to reach deeper and be able to understand where they're coming from and why they do the things they do. And understanding that will really help you a lot when you come into contact with somebody who has autism. The only problem that I really saw with this article is that it wasn't based on a lot of data. It was basically based on information from people with firsthand experiences, and it was a question answer kind of deal. While it doesn't make it any less important, because it is very important to know somebody's firsthand experiences, to be able to see that and take it in and be able to use it for your own experiences. Firsthand experiences from just everyday people can be very important, but I think this article would have a lot more meaning or value for a research article if it had more experiments or a study that was actually involved. But it was a great article. It was something very interesting to read, and I really did enjoy it. And thank you.